अनुप आप म्यूट कर लीजिए।
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome. This History Month of 2025, we welcome you to be a part of a series of thought provoking conversations on what makes work for women. Over the course of this entire month, we will be engaging with experts and exploring key actionables on different themes impacting women's workforce participation. To start off this series, we have with us today Devanshi Shukla, a labor market expert and fourth-year doctoral researcher at INSEAD Business School. She studies labor mobility and opportunity structures in the context of India's gig economy and green job sector. Devanshi leverages field experiments and computational methods to explore these questions, collaborating closely with tech startups, nonprofits, and consulting firms. Prior to her doctoral studies at INSEAD, she earned degrees from the National University of Singapore and the National University of Technology, Kanpur. Welcome, Devanshi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here today.
We can stop screen share now. Great. Devanshi is joining us right from Singapore, and she's made time with us today to discuss one of the most important topics in today's age, which is how can technology pave the way for women to enter the workforce? For the audience, if you have any questions, you can put them in the comment section, and we will definitely take them up towards the end of this session. Devanshi, I was just recently reading some numbers from the TeamLease digital report, and they said that women's workforce participation rate in India's tech industry is expected to rise by 14.9% by 2027, which is up by 10.8% in 2022. Which is a huge, significant number if we see in terms of just how the tech industry is evolving and women's workforce participation. How do you think technology is solving barriers for women to enter the workforce? Everybody is talking about this angle of flexibility which tech offers. How do you think that is helping women to redefine work-life balance, specifically for the rural cohort?
Sure, thanks for the question, Toral. I think what you raise is a very important point. India and around the world, but India specifically, has struggled to increase the labor force participation of women. And in that way, we are sort of missing out on a very large chunk of talent that never really comes into the labor force. What technology allows us to do, basically what technology is allowing for, is taking care of some key barriers that is hindering labor force participation by women. For example, one of the key barriers that research has shown, practitioners have shown, is the fact that commuting to a job is challenging for women because they are dealing with so many other responsibilities. So an additional commute to the job is something that hinders participation. Additionally, you have issues of skilling, you have informational barriers, you just have, flexibility is something that is not really baked into jobs, traditional jobs, and that's what stops women from participating. What tech does essentially, and this happened during COVID, where we were all hit with a shock, and then technology suddenly was like dictating how workplaces looked. And I think one thing that it does is it sort of lowers time cost of commuting. It lets you work at home, and lets you work during your non-peak hours, so that you're able to manage your household responsibilities, and encouraging sort of consistent workforce engagement. But as you would have seen in, recently, this sort of flexible work arrangements have been in the discourse quite a lot in the last few months. And the arguments basically are centered around, is this good for firms? Does it hamper productivity? Is this, is this leading to suboptimal outcomes? And the answer, which, I mean, there's a lot of researchers. So there's Nick Bloom and their colleagues at Stanford. There is a very prolific scholar, Raj Chaudhary, at Harvard Business School. And all of them have done extensive studies that show that having a work from home arrangement, or say a hybrid work arrangement, which allows you to work at home, sometimes in the office, it doesn't really hinder productivity. In fact, it allows more talent to be recruited into the firm. You're not bound by the geographic availability of talent and labor. Additionally, it also reduces attrition. So less people are moving out of the workforce because of, whatever personal reasons. And one very important finding from all their research is that the quit rates reduce significantly when you make these work from home arrangements available for women, for non-managers, and for those who have to undertake long commutes. So I agree, this research is centered mostly in the developed countries. Some are in Bangladesh, but I think what we see is that there is a lot of benefit for firms to retain talent, to recruit talent when they take a hybrid sort of model. The other opportunities that tech offers is, well, it lets you join labor platforms and labor opportunities which probably weren't available earlier. For example, there are so many labor market platforms that offer you freelance jobs, or task-based jobs like Upwork or MTurk or something of those sorts, that you join, you get a task, you complete the task, and you earn money. So all this is possible because tech opens those sort of doors. Second, you can see that one other problem that women typically have been facing in the labor market is a lack of skills, or lack of upskilling opportunities, because it's costly to go and, costly in terms of time, resources, opportunity cost, to go and upskill yourself in the middle of things. But with tech, this barrier also has sort of been, dealt with, in the sense that you have tech platforms that, give you modular learning opportunities, where you can pick a course, take a course, complete a course, get a certificate, get a certification, and sort of upskill yourself. So I think tech has basically worked in sort of dealing with few of the traditional barriers that we were all aware of. It's not a panacea. There's a lot that needs to still be done, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Devanshi. That was quite interesting to know, in terms of what work has been done specifically in the academia on this front. So moving ahead, Devanshi, what do you think, what kind of job roles are emerging, which specifically the rural women can look forward to, if they want to get into leverage technology and make a living? What are the job roles that you see emerging in, say, in the next 5-10 years that, which they can leverage?
I don't know. So I don't know if I can be specific to rural women. I'll try as much as possible to answer that bit. But I think in general, given the problem of low labor force participation is, it's all around, it's among rural women, it's also among urban, semi-urban women. I think with technology, you can see a lot, like I mentioned, you have a lot more jobs that are coming up, which are, say, on these labor market platforms, or in the freelance or the gig economy, right? So what that essentially means is you have a task-based, so you don't have an office, you join a platform, you have a task-based allotment of work, you complete the task and you get paid for it. So those sort of opportunities are now very, very readily available. If you have a skill, a common skill, you join the platform, you make your profile, and then you kind of get tasks allotted to you, and you do those. So those sort of have really blown up. Then otherwise, of course, there's the gig economy, which all of us are kind of aware of, the on-demand services sector in which people want all services at home now. So you can be in the delivery sector or some services at home sector. So those are things that have blown up already. I think the next thing to look for is going to be with generative AI and the growth of Gen AI. And there are roles that exist currently, like that of data annotation or preparing training data, things like that, that need to go into these large models. I think that's going to only increase with Gen AI sort of becoming more and more developed and more sophisticated. So I think that is something to look for. I think the other thing that I'm super excited about and really unsure of how it will develop, but it's a very exciting space, is how green jobs are going to grow and create opportunities for jobs for men, women, and how they are going to basically become the next big sector to recruit people. At INSEAD, we're working, as you know, with Pratham to take on a project. We're looking at a large-scale field experiment where we're looking at how firms in the growing green industry, we're looking at the solar industry in particular, how they can basically engage more youth, more women, generally more women and men in the sector. And traditionally, what we're looking at is that the solar industry has some sort of, traditional associations with a very male-dominated industry, like the electrical industry. So one of the things we see when we talk to women that, oh, would you want to join the solar industry? They'd say, oh, no, isn't it just like the electrical? And that's a very male-dominated field. So I think what's really interesting for us and interesting for the sector would be that as a new green job sector emerges, how can it like leave those linkages to, traditionally male-dominated trades, and how can it be more inclusive for all genders, more inclusive for different people, and like how can it basically ensure that the benefits are being spread to men and women equally?
Absolutely, and we are super excited to know what will be the findings from the study we're conducting, and we hope to share that with everybody soon. But thank you so much. I think that's a series of very interesting job roles that we see emerging. We already see a lot of training organizations, even the industry, sort of adopting and tailoring their strategy to address how they're going to be prepared to get women skilled for these job roles. Now, shifting gears to the gig economy, Devanshi, where also we see that your expertise lies within the labor market and the gig economy. We've seen that a recent report says that India's gig economy is going to create about 2.35 crores of jobs by 2030. That's massive. And since COVID, we've seen so many women emerge as YouTube influencers. I personally follow a couple of them, and they're amazing. It's really heartwarming to see how women are leveraging a tech platform to express themselves, to have an income pathway. What potential do you see the gig economy and digital entrepreneurship? What potential does this hold for women in particular?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think I'd like to divide my answer into two parts. I'll talk about the gig economy first, and then digital entrepreneurship, because both are like super exciting and like great pathways that are now available. I think you're right. Absolutely, the gig economy has been increasing rapidly. It's. I mean, you come to India and you see all these gig workers all around you at all times. I think it's basically been driven by, tech penetration, the prevalence of mobile phones, and a demand from consumers for like very quick services and comfort in their home. I think like one of the form of gig economy that I study, and I think is all of us would have experienced multiple times, is the on-demand, services like food delivery or grocery delivery or some sort of other quick commerce delivery through platforms like Swiggy or Zomato or Blinkit. I don't know, there's just so many, or even ride hailing, right? Ola or Uber in cities. This is like basically where most of my research is situated. And unfortunately, I see that the representation of women in this sector of the gig economy is hardly 1 to 2%. It's a huge sector. There are millions of people working here, but just about 1% of them are women. And I was very curious as to what the problem really was, because this sort of work has flexibility. Of course, there'll be challenges, but why are women so underrepresented? And I think in course of my research, I've spoken to several CEOs of these tech firms, and it's very interesting because the firms themselves are actually very, very keen to hire women as part of their gig fleet. And the reason they're not able to is, I'll get to that later, but the reason they want to hire women is because in their experience, from whatever limited women are in their fleet, women are better employees. They are less likely to churn, and anyone you'd probably know, right? Gig economy, the biggest problem is churn. People are leaving the platform like at about 250% annually. So women are more likely to stay longer. They're more likely to perform better. They are less likely to do fraud or incorrect deliveries. So they are like great employees, and firms want to hire more women. So then why aren't women joining? Well, because I think the challenges that firms are facing in attracting women to the fleet is that our cities really are not equipped to have women do this kind of work, which is you're almost always on the road. You may not have access to, say, clean bathrooms. It may not be super safe for you to go to certain areas. You cannot work at all times. And so platforms at their end are introducing sort of tech features, app features like safety tracking or SOS features, or even giving optimizing their routes so that it avoids known unsafe areas. But I think it's more like a societal sort of barrier, or just the city level barriers that are holding back women. And of course women will be discouraged hearing all these cases. Of course there are not even many women, so the role model thing kicks in, that you haven't seen too many people do this. But from the firm's perspective, I think they are super keen to hire. They would love to have more women on their fleet. It's just that there needs to be some concerted effort to make this sector a little bit more comfortable for women to work in. Yeah, I think what you mentioned about YouTube and the other opportunities that women are pursuing, which are, say, non-service, but like using platforms to, teach a skill or share their life or share their talent. I think that's very, very interesting. I actually haven't seen too many studies in academia that look at that kind of non-service gig work, but I think that would be very interesting to see, because that's a completely different model where you're getting to express your creativity, your talent, or some particular skill. So I think I'd be very interested to see that done like academically at all. The other thing you mentioned was digital entrepreneurship, and I think that is something that is incredibly interesting, and I think India is leading the way. It's super interesting to be in that space right now. I think democratizing access to entrepreneurship for women in rural areas or from other, lower tier cities, it's just so great. I think I've seen examples of a number of social commerce platforms, I think, where, through a low code model or through easy onboarding, more and more entrepreneurs are able to join, are able to sell their products, are able to reach an audience which they couldn't have earlier. And that's great. I think I was reading a report by Meesho, which just said that there are about over 9 or 10 million women entrepreneurs onboarded in, I think, 21, 22. And I guess the number has only grown from there. I think the fact that other companies, I think, following the Meesho model, or there are other major tech firms that are also sort of working to democratize this entrepreneurship for women, that's amazing, because that sort of ties in flexibility, but also lets you basically reach markets and reach consumers and reach customers, which you would not have earlier. I think the role of WhatsApp, Facebook, all these amazing sort of tools has been great. And this is a space that I'm very excited to see how it develops. I think one thing to keep in mind, especially with the gig economy, would be that yes, it offers a lot of flexibility. It offers, you can come in when you want, you can work whichever day you wish. You don't really have a manager. It's algorithmically managed. There are some caveats to keep in mind, because flexibility in this on-demand sort of gig work comes hand in hand with a lot of uncertainty. So you don't know, how much you'll earn in a day. You don't know how many orders or whatever it is that you are trying to provide service for, you're going to get in a day. It's often hard to navigate the platform incentives. It's hard to make sense of, how do I optimize the order pay versus the incentive pay. And it's often a very isolating, lonely kind of a journey, because you don't have to work with peers, you have to work alone. So I think we've seen a lot of studies on gig work that highlight that gig workers, yeah, they have flexibility, but we must remember it is a little bit lonely, it is a little bit complicated at times. So sort of having communities is something that works well, but yeah, just to keep in mind.
No, absolutely. And I think with AI coming in, we will see a lot of evolution in how, the gig platforms as well as digital entrepreneurship takes a turn. And that's a conversation for another time. But given all this, Devanshi, what do you think the industry should sort of focus on in terms of compliance, in terms of support systems to provide that enabling environment for women where, they can access such opportunities and take the digital pathway?
I think for the gig, so again, I'll talk about the gig first and the digital entrepreneurship, because the opportunities are different. I think for gig work, the intent of firms is very much there. Like that is something I can totally see. The problem really seems to be a lack of, say, urban infrastructure, safety. So these are urban, it's not really in a particular firm's hand to sort of, make sure that the environment around is safe for a person to work in. So I think there are for example, there are some cities like in India, Chennai has a very high participation of women gig workers in food delivery. And I'm assuming that is a function, we didn't know why that happens, but I guess from the field teams, we understood that that's a function of the fact that women feel safer working over there. And I'm sure some areas may not be, but on average, it is considered safer for them. I think one thing firms can look at is, sort of collaborating to whatever extent possible with to improve urban infrastructure, ensure there are safe designated areas where gig workers can sort of collect some sort of clean, safe restrooms at their end. At that tech end, they can basically develop, like I said, features for real-time tracking, features for SOS, immediate sort of help if someone sort of presses that SOS button. That is something I think there are some firms that are doing a very good job of that. For example, in Delhi, there's a firm called Blue Smart that I think has the highest number of women working as drivers in their fleet. So it is possible for tech firms to at their end to sort of make that happen, but my understanding is it's broadly an urban infrastructure problem that needs to be dealt, with the urban infrastructure people. I think another problem that, like I mentioned in my previous answer, was that there aren't enough role models and there aren't enough communities, right? And communities make you feel safe. So they make you feel supported. So I think one other thing is that the companies can basically have some buddy groups or peer opportunities among their women gig workers that will help them develop a support system. You can quickly reach out to someone in case of any sort of help that is needed. And I think that engineering those social interactions, those social connections can really help encourage more women to join this form of work if they would like to. For your question on digital entrepreneurship, I think a lot of these platforms are doing a really good job. They are basically helping onboard people, helping them reach, bigger customer sets, audiences, etc. I think, and I'm not aware whether they're currently doing it, but I think another low-hanging fruit would be to provide, say, business development workshops or marketing and sales workshops that help women sort of take their business to the next level. I think that is something that we have seen really take off. So I was talking to a bunch of researchers at UC Berkeley and Harvard Business School, and recently they undertook a field experiment in Kenya where they gave a set of entrepreneurs Chat GPT powered WhatsApp advisor bot. So it was a chat bot essentially, with the backend being Chat GPT. And what it does is you can just type in your question, and it gives you advice. So they've trained it on like the local context and the local business context. And it basically helps advice be available to entrepreneurs at scale very readily, because advice is really costly to get. So if tomorrow I need to, give advice to a group of people on their specific problems, it's going to be very costly and very difficult to get that many people to give specific advice to different entrepreneurs. So this, I think, is a great scalable solution. It makes, troubleshooting, it makes advising, training, everything very easy. And I think these sort of solutions would be, undertaken by a lot of these social entrepreneurship platforms that can help women, really come on and do the best that they can on the platform.
Absolutely. I think those are some amazing recommendations for the industry and the government to also take a note specifically from the urban infrastructure point of view. I think they can make a fundamental difference in the way women see these opportunities and really willingly come forward to opt for them. Just closing the loop on both ends, Devanshi, from a both supply and demand lens, what do you think should be the key measures if we were to create more digital employment opportunities for women? So, should the focus be more on access, awareness, technical skills, behavioral skills, industry linkages? What would be your, say, top 3 to 4 recommendations on, this should be the focus area if we were to increase digital employment opportunities for women?
I think, we've seen, like we've spoken so far, that there are a lot of opportunities that exist. Of course, neither of them are perfect, but I think there's a lot of opportunities that are in the market, for women to become part of the labor force. I think the problem and the challenges that remain are twofold. Right. First would be informational. So like we've spoken about how there are new sectors and new sort of industries and new opportunities and a lot of ways that women can become part of the labor force. But the truth of the matter, I think, is that a large share of women in a lot of rural areas are probably not aware that these opportunities exist, and they don't know how to leverage them, right? The other crucial point beyond information is that there is essentially, I don't think there's a lot of trust in just any information coming to you. So having, we've seen in our work on the field, in our joint project, that giving information is one thing, but the source from which this information is going to come is a altogether very crucial point that we cannot ignore. So what I mean by that is that in rural areas, people are more likely to believe information that comes through trusted sources. And so what could be these trusted sources? Well, roles of organizations like Pratham, who are very connected to the community. They are crucially in the community to help people, to handhold people, to introduce them to opportunities. And people will listen to them because, well, you're trusted in the community. I think that is super important. So I'll give you an example very quickly. That we're doing, like I said, we're doing this study in the solar industry to see how firms that are coming up in the solar industry can recruit people into, entry-level jobs. And we realized that from our field work, that in most villages today, people can see solar panels and solar water pumps. So they're aware that there's an ecosystem of the solar industry sort of taking hold around them, but they are not aware that this is an actual sector where there are job opportunities where I can go and sort of get employed. And even if they do know, they are not really ready to believe the information. They say, I don't know, it sounds too good to be true. I don't know if it's true or not, what you're saying. So I think there we've seen that having a trusted on-ground partner to actually communicate to people that there are these things available, this is how you do them, handhold them through the process of onboarding, joining. I think that these are the two barriers that are very, very crucial. And this is going to be true for any industry. So like I just mentioned, the green jobs have this problem of information and trust. You're talking about Gen AI and AI powered industries. They're going to have the same problem. A, people will not know what opportunities exist, and B, they won't really know whether to trust that information. So I think collaboration between partners and cross-sector collaboration is very crucial here. Firms and nonprofits who are more connected to the field ground need to work together to make people aware, make women aware that these opportunities exist, and help them sort of leverage them and make the most out of these opportunities. So my 2 points would be information and trust.
Absolutely, no, that's very, very true. I think the entire civil society and any tech startup coming up with digital products, I feel like trust is one of the major things to crack and focus on. Once that is cracked with the communities and your end co-participants, it's going to solve half the battle. So I totally agree on that, Devanshi, and thank you so much. We have a couple of questions from the audience. So we'll take that because I think we have a couple of minutes more left. So one of the questions that have come up is, while the opportunities are growing in tech-enabled livelihoods, what more work needs to be done to ensure females catch up the digital divide, are able to take advantage of these new opportunities in the sectors you referenced?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think that's an amazing question. That is the big problem, right? Like we said, that on the supply side, there are things that are happening. There are opportunities that technology is created, and yet they're not fully being utilized. And I think there's some things that can be done at both ends of the firm as well as on the ground. I think the first part is the informational, the information. And when I say information, it's not just about the fact that there is an opportunity, it's also how do I use it, right? Because tech things, I mean, it's all fancy to say, it kind of can get complicated to go to, rural India or to say, okay, well, these are these wonderful things available. I think there's a need, like I said, to partner, to have some cross-sector collaboration so that we can like increase awareness, and then to make access possible, we need to sort of, understand what the barriers are for the uptake. And that could be a matter of, say, trust, or it could be that I don't understand exactly how to do these things. So I think that is something that we need to actively sort of work on, as firms need to work on, everyone together. The ecosystem really needs to come together for this, because we've seen several interventions from academia, even from firms, that really try to take care of the information barrier. But my sense is that information is useful, access is useful only as much as you trust it enough to actually take it on. So I think like building that sort of a community trust, and so would be very crucial to get more women to take it up. And other things, like we discussed, like there are certain sector specific challenges that exist, and there's no one solution, but like there are ways. I mean, there are ways that actors have to come together and ensure that we can overcome those sector specific barriers to women's participation.
Totally, Devanshi. Thank you so much. I think all these insights have been incredibly useful, not just for the civil society, but anybody who really wants to do some work around women in tech and, sort of help more women enter the workforce using technology platforms. I think this was super, super helpful. Thanks a lot. And I guess whoever would like to reach out to Devanshi for any kind of collaborations or research studies, they can reach out to her and ask more questions. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We will see you next week on Monday, same time, 4 to 5 p.m. And we'll have another expert join us on Monday. We'll keep that for surprise right now and share more details soon. But thank you so much for joining us. It was wonderful discussing all of this. And we hope, I mean, there is a lot of food for thought for everyone from today's conversation. And personally, we'll also see how we can sort of plug these things in within our programs and interventions. Thank you so much, Devanshi. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Joining us. It was wonderful discussing all of this. everyone from today's conversation. And possibly we'll also see how we can sort of plug these things in within our programs and events. Thank you so much, Vimas. Thanks a lot. Thank you.